Hey folks, super excited to share this new feature in Reveal with you. You can now chat with your study. Now, a quick note about why it took us longer to add chat, which is a pretty common feature in any AI tool. It's because when you're working with large amounts of data, so like in the study, you might have 20 interviews or even 100 different interviews. That can be a lot of data. And the AI models are not able to handle that much amount of information in one go. So they have a limited context window. So the way you have to do this is look at what is it that we want to learn about, what is our prompt, and then tied to that, what is the most relevant pieces of information in the research data. Send that to the AI model for it to do its own thing. Now, the way most of or a lot of chat solutions do this is take a mathematical approach. For example, there is an approach called RAG. What it does is it would take the prompt, take a mathematical representation of it, and then it has already have a mathematical representation of all the research data, and it compares the two and finds the most similar items and sends that to the AI model. Now, that as such works, but the challenge is that by nature you're finding things that are most common. So you're missing out on softer signals, which could be very important in a research context. In case of Reveal, we have always focused on that, and the grid that you see, for instance, in front of you, already takes a much deeper approach for analysis, which is why we are able to deliver much more nuance and relevant findings. Now we have applied the same approach to chat. So with that, let's show you how it works. So here I'm in my study COVID-19. It was done with the frontline workers, and I can simply click the chat icon. So this brings me to a familiar interface. This is where how most of the chat solutions are there. And right off the bat, you'll see that there are some suggested prompts for you. These are based on your study, and they will be refreshed each time you visit that page to sort of show you the latest that might be relevant. If you like any of these, simply click that, gets added into the box, and you can change it and run that prompt. Now, I've already created a few just to show you the kinds of things it can do. So let's start with study demographics. Here, I've asked the question, what is the study about? How many participants are there? What is the gender breakdown? And it is able to come back and say, okay, study examines the healthcare workers' experiences during crisis, etc. It is also able to pull down how many participants are there, 19, which is correct, and the gender breakdown. And then it offers me that do I want the breakdown by the role or the location? Now, all of these things are tags that are there in the study. So if I go back to the observation grid, you'll see every participant has been tagged with these factors: male, nurse, New York. So it is able to take all of those things into account while it's doing the analysis. So let's look at this one. This is a thematic analysis. I asked it to see how did the healthcare workers manage their emotional responses in this crisis. So this is a little bit of a compound question because I'm asking not just what was their emotional response, but how did they manage it? And here it comes back and says they manage their emotions by turning to pragmatic coping, leaning into clinical work, using cognitive shutdown like humor to survive, and so on. And then as I scroll, it's able to bring in a lot more detail. Now, all of these things are always tied to the evidence, so I can click on any of the participants' name. The panel opens up on the right side, and I get to the specific part of the transcript where this is being discussed. So, like everywhere in Reveal, it always is tied to the evidence, and that means it does not hallucinate. Cool. So, this was a broad question that I posted, and then I can ask it, what about men specifically? So, like we just saw a few moments before, each participant has been tagged with a gender, and here I could just ask, what about men specifically? And it's able to then look through only the people who are tagged as males and then come back with the responses from them. Very cool. So that's kind of the core thematic analysis, but can do a lot more sophisticated things. So the next thing I wanted to show you was around personas. So I asked it to identify different personas that I can use for my research purposes. And it has come back with 5 distinct personas: adaptive problem solver, and here the details: what does the profile look like, what are the representative needs, who are the people involved, and then even the verbatim quotes from those participants. This one is a fearful protector who focuses on the family first, is risk averse, is protective, and so on. So it can look through the data and provide this kind of a consolidated output as well. Next, let's look at this one where I asked it to generate a tabular comparison by location. So here it has been able to look through that and provided me a tabular comparison from New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. What were the pain points? And then also again include the actual evidence from there. So it's able to take care of a lot of broad things. I have one more study I want to show you. This one was done on Peloton bike. It was actually a very thoroughly done jobs to be done interview. And we did not do the interview, it was done by somebody else, so we're just analyzing it. So here I'm in that study for Peloton jobs to be done. And one of the questions I asked it is to create a journey map. Because jobs to be done interviews tend to focus on the customer's journey, I can ask it that kind of question. So I asked build a customer journey map for me, and it has identified all the stages of the journey, from trigger, how did the recognition of the need happen, what was the discovery process, what was the consideration factors, and so on and so forth. Now, based on that, it also asked me, do I want a visual representation of this journey map? And I said, yeah. So it's then asked me which format do I want it in, like a PNG or a SVG file. And I said, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Now, SVG, if you're not familiar with, it's called Scalable Vector Graphic. It is like a code that's written, but it can be represented as visuals on the screen. So it has done that, and it has generated this journey map for me. Now, as such, it does a good job, but you'll see that the text overlaps, so it's not formatted properly. So I ask it to fix that. And I say the SVG, I misspelled SVG, has overlapping text. Can you fix that? It is able to understand the misspelling here and then regenerate that in a readable format. Very cool. Now, this one is a jobs to be done study. So let's ask it, what are the jobs to be done? So I just said, help me identify jobs to be done. And it has identified these five. Establish consistent, sustainable exercise habit, fit the effective workouts in a busy schedule. The motivational and immersive experience side. This one is interesting because this person used to run before and they wanted to have that kind of a motivational and immersive experience like they used to have before. And then I asked it to create the nice graphic slide for it, and it has created that for me, and so on. Now, in this case, it came back with five, but I could ask it to generate even more. So in this case, I asked it to come up with 15 potential jobs to be done, and it was able to do that for me. So you have a lot of flexibility with this. Last, I wanted to show you an example of a usability test. So this particular usability test was done by Steve Krug a few years ago on Zipcar's website, if you remember that product. And it's a typical usability test. You show the screen to the website to the user in this case, and you're asking them to complete some tasks and ask questions in the process. So here what I wanted to show you is that it can understand the timeline of this conversation very well. So first prompt I have is a very simple one. Describe the flow of the interview and a detailed timeline of what happened next. And it is able to do that right here. That means I can ask it to create a visual of this timeline, and you'll see in this visual, it has even identified that there was some critical failure at a particular point, and there were some usability pain points in the map search, and I can dive into those. And I can then also ask questions related to a specific step in the process to say, okay, what are the pain points related to cost estimation? That was a screen that a task that the user had to do, and I was able to ask questions about that. And it came back that there was manual calculation burden, there was complexity around the rates, ambiguous membership terms, etc. Similarly, I asked it a question about what is the participant's initial reaction after seeing the Zipcar's website in the interview. And this was useful because the participant had actually seen Zipcar's website even before the interview, but we wanted to see what was their response after they saw it in the interview. So here we can see that, okay, yeah, there was an initial recognition of the website, but there was some visual confusion based on what they saw, and so on. So it's able to understand the timeline. That means you can ask the questions about what happened when I showed a particular stimulus to the user or after they saw the stimulus, and so on. So there's a lot more to be done, but we're pretty excited. I think this is going to be very helpful in your research efforts. Thank you.